From the moment we first saw Tears of the Kingdom, the promise of a dark and eerie Zelda game seemed apparent. And while the initial promise of a darker than Majora's Mask type game was eventually broken, Tears of the Kingdom is still a game that utilizes darker themes and motifs. Certain sections of this game lean heavily into horror and are downright scary. So today on this All Hallows Eve, join me as we look into how Tears of the Kingdom uses horror. The slow tension and buildup of the opening sequence is an excellent example of how Tears of the Kingdom creates anxiety and dread for the player. Most people knew beforehand what awaited them in the catacombs beneath Hyrule Castle. You could say that takes away from the surprise and ruins the scary reveal, but I'd say knowing that Ganondorf awaits you in the depths makes it even more scary because you know exactly what is waiting and just how severe it is. The gradual presence of gloom increasing, along with the music progressively getting more and more chaotic and spooky, only exacerbates the uneasy feeling you get as you delve deeper. The music is very prominent at the climax of your descent when you notice Ganondorf's mummified corpse in the distant chamber, only to deafen as the cutscene of his awakening begins. Ganondorf's revival is a terrifying moment that puts into perspective his power and intimidation. Even with his strength nowhere near its maximum, the Demon King manages to destroy the Master Sword and almost fatally wounds Link. For Link and Zelda, this moment had to be even more terrifying. Hearing this reanimated corpse utter your names with absolute disgust and hatred had to have made these experienced heroes afraid. We can definitely see the fear in Zelda's face. One of Tears of the Kingdom's most defining features is the depths. This giant underworld mirroring Hyrule above is a vast, dark, and creepy forgotten land filled with mysteries and maleficent entities. The depths do a great job of implementing horror by means of darkness. It is pitch black in the depths unless you utilize the light roots or bright bloom seeds. Not knowing what's 2 steps in front of you is a frightening thought, especially after you've seen what lurks down here. You may not know you're about to wade into a sea of gloom or stumble into a giant Frox's territory. Gloom-laden enemies are everywhere and wish nothing more than to snuff out the life of Hyrule's hero. The depth's connection to an actual underworld is also apparent due to the presence of Poes, soldiers' ghosts, and the bargaining statues. These aimless spirits wander the depths waiting for help to pass on. The soldiers' ghosts are tethered here until you pick up their weapon. Only then do they pass on. This use of symbolism shows how these soldiers wish to aid in the battle against the Demon King, and how restless their spirits are until they know they've been of use to the hero. For the Poes, they require aid from the Titanic Bargainer statues. These ancient deities are scattered across the depths and are responsible for guiding Poes to their final resting place. Link must bring the lost souls to these statues and is rewarded for doing so with dark and evil-themed items. These Bargainer statues are very reminiscent of the Greek myth of Charon, the ferryman of the dead whose purpose was to guide souls over the river Styx that separates the world of the living and the dead. In Breath of the Wild, few things struck fear into you as much as this piano riff. Guardians weren't necessarily creepy, but the difficulty and tenacity of these enemies made them the most frightening enemy in Breath of the Wild. For Tears of the Kingdom, that fear now rests with the Gloom Spawn. Gloom Spawn is undeniably the scariest monster in Tears of the Kingdom. Gloom Spawn will lurk and ambush any unsuspecting person that comes into contact with it. These ghastly arms reaching up out of a pool of gloom with a horrific screech immediately scares you. The distortion of the world around you into a blood moon-like state with nothing but blood red surrounding you makes you feel trapped and panicked. Even if you can get out of range, they will follow you and grab you, wringing the life out of your body. When defeated, the nightmare doesn't end. Instead, these arms give way to birth of Phantom Ganon, a specter made of gloom with ferocious attacks and a menacing presence. Phantom's Ganon design just reeks of evil. Throughout Tears of the Kingdom, we see Princess Zelda across Hyrule and hear about the questionable things that she has been doing. A lot of these reports directly contradict the Zelda we all know and love, so it was no surprise once we entered Hyrule Castle to follow her around and discovered that she wasn't the real Zelda. Instead, a puppet created by Ganondorf to lead us astray and to trap us in Hyrule Castle's sanctum. Puppet Zelda coerces Link into a false state of security by showing him an idyllic version of a Hyrule castle he has long left behind him. And then the mask begins to tear, and Zelda's tone turns much more wicked, before the inevitable reveal of Ganondorf. Ganondorf then mockingly dissolves Puppet Zelda and reforms her into 5 Phantom Ganons, a terrifying sight for sure. This section is one of my personal favorites in the game, and a lot of that is due to how well it captures a frightening tone with Zelda's subtle shift to an evil entity. We can tell that Zelda is not quite right when she is speaking to Link, but the grand reveal that it was Ganondorf after his manifestation appears is one of Tears of the Kingdom's most bone-chilling moments. Zelda has long been a franchise that uses horror and frightening themes to scare its players, and Tears is no exception. While a lot of the game doesn't directly revolve around dark imagery and ideas, the sections where we do get them stand out strongly. Those moments are extremely memorable and some of the highest points in the game. Tears of the Kingdom's use of horror elements make a lasting impact on the player and help establish its identity. It's not directly the darkest Zelda or the scariest one, but it captures those moments incredibly well. But you tell me, what is the scariest thing you've come across in Tears of the Kingdom? Let me know in the comments down below. That of course will bring us to the end of the video. I hope you all have a wonderful and fright-filled Halloween, and until next time, I will see you in the next one.